Hospital corridor, midnight. The overhead fluorescents hum softly, casting pale light across the freshly waxed floors. A silence lives here. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that holds its breath between beeps and monitors. Aiden moved like a shadow, mop gliding in smooth, practiced strokes. His janitor's cart squeaked every now and then, a sound the nurses had grown used to, even fond of. Nobody spoke to him, but he knew their routines. Night shifts, coffee breaks, whispered calls behind closed nurse stations. His face was worn but kind. Graying stubble, a tired brow, eyes that once held fire but now held resolve. The navy blue jumpsuit bore no name tag, just a patch, St. Mercy Regional Hospital. He didn't need a name. He needed quiet. He needed the hours. He paused outside room 312, where an old woman slept with her oxygen ticking gently beside her. He glanced in, then moved on. Some patients he checked on even if they weren't his job. Aiden reached the ICU wing. The air shifted there, cooler, heavier. He dipped the mop in fresh water, leaned into the handle, lost in rhythm. Music played faintly from the nurse's desk. A piano instrumental, gentle and familiar. He almost smiled. Then the doors pushed open fast. A nurse sprinted out, wide-eyed, shouting, "Incoming trauma! Young male, 17, MVA. ICU now." Aiden stepped aside as the gurney stormed past. A boy, barely breathing. Blood on his shirt. Medics yelling vitals. Nurses scrambling. Aiden didn't move. Just stared after them. Eyes narrowed. Something wasn't right. He turned back to his mop, but his hands didn't move. His eyes lingered on the ICU door that now swung shut behind the chaos. Beat. And then, he heard it, flatline. He glances at the ICU doors. Something feels off tonight. The hospital erupted like a storm. Code blue! ICU 3. The announcement blared through the intercom, echoing off sterile walls. Aiden froze mid-step, his mop still dripping onto the clean floor. He turned slowly toward the ICU window. Inside, a team of doctors swarmed a young boy whose chest barely rose. Tubes, wires, monitors. A blur of motion and noise. Blood pressure dropping. "Get me another line! Type and cross-match O negative." Through the glass, Aiden saw the boy's pale face, barely 17, maybe 18. A streak of dried blood cut across his temple. His knuckles scraped raw. His school jacket hung in tatters beside the bed. A nurse yanked it off to read the tag. "Lucas Atwell," she murmured. The name meant nothing to Aiden, but the desperation in her voice did. Another nurse shouted, "We don't have compatible donors in-house." Someone cursed under their breath. "If we don't get blood now, we'll lose him." Aiden stepped closer. He wasn't supposed to. Janitors weren't allowed past that glass line. But something inside him, some quiet ache, pulled him forward. The doctor pressed the boy's chest, voice trembling. "He's fading. I can't." "Defibrillator. Ready, clear." The sound hit like thunder. The boy's body jolted. The line flatlined again. A nurse whispered a prayer. Another shouted, "We're losing him. We need O negative now." Aiden's eyes flicked to the blood donor sign pinned on the wall. Red letters. Every drop saves a life. His hands tightened around the mop handle. His pulse matched the beeping rhythm of the dying boy's monitor. He didn't move yet. Not yet. But something deep inside him whispered, "You can help." And for the first time in years, Aiden looked ready to break a rule. "We're losing him. We need O negative now." The nurse's voice cracked. "We're out of O negative in the emergency bank." The room pulsed with chaos. Shouts overlapping, monitors screaming. The boy's heartbeat flickered like a candle in a storm. And then, a voice, calm and quiet. "I'm O negative." Heads turned. The janitor stood at the doorway, still in his faded uniform, hands trembling slightly from exhaustion. Dr. Patel blinked. "You?" Aiden nodded once. "Yes, sir. I gave blood a few years ago. Still clean." You work here?" one nurse asked, disbelief softening into concern. "Custodial." There was a pause, like the hospital itself inhaled. The doctor glanced toward the clock. Seconds ticking, the boy's life bleeding away. "We don't have time for full screening," Dr. Patel said quietly. "I'll sign the waiver." Aiden's tone was steady, eyes locked on the boy through the glass. "Take what you need." A nurse hurried to grab a clipboard, hands shaking. "Sir, you understand the risk? You could—" Aiden interrupted gently. "I said it's fine." His voice carried no heroism, no drama, just quiet certainty. Within minutes, he sat in the donation room. A cold needle slid into his arm. He winced slightly, not from pain but from memory. The feeling of giving something he could never get back. Through the small window, he could still see the boy in ICU. Doctors working. Machines buzzing. A nurse whispered to another, "He didn't even ask who the boy was." Aiden's lips curved faintly, tiredly. "Doesn't matter," he said under his breath. "Someone's waiting for him." The nurse glanced at his chart. No last name written. Just Aiden. Blood flowed. Machines beeped. Somewhere in the distance, the boy's heartbeat returned. Beep, beep, beep. "He didn't even ask who the boy was," a nurse whispers. 7 a.m. The sleek black SUV screeched to a halt at the hospital's emergency entrance. Out stepped Victor Atwell, silver hair combed back, tailored coat flaring in the wind, cell phone pressed hard to his ear. His driver tried to say something, but Victor raised one hand. Silence. "Tell the private clinic to prep a jet. I'll fly Lucas out the second he's stable." He didn't wait for a response. Storming through the sliding doors, Victor's presence swallowed the hallway. Nurses scattered. Interns froze. His reputation entered the room 5 seconds before he did. Dr. Patel met him halfway. "Mr. Atwell, your son, he stabilized, but it was close. He lost a lot of blood." Victor's jaw clenched. "Why the hell was there no donor match ready?" "There was a donor," Patel said cautiously. "We were lucky. A hospital employee." Victor didn't register the word. His eyes darted past Patel to the ICU room, where Lucas lay still, chest rising beneath machines. "I want top equipment flown in," Victor barked, "and double the staff on him until I say otherwise." "Yes, sir." From across the corridor, Aiden stood near the elevator, changed back into his janitor uniform. Pale, tired, unseen. The nurses passed him. Doctors brushed by. No one made eye contact. Victor turned and waved impatiently. "Where's the head of surgery? Get him down here now." A nurse tried to speak, but Victor growled, "My son doesn't die. Do you understand?" Silence. Behind them, Aiden quietly pushed his mop bucket forward, blending back into the hallway, just a shadow again. But his eyes? They lingered on the boy in the ICU. Not for praise. Not for thanks. Just to make sure he was still breathing. "My son doesn't die. Do you understand?" Victor growls at staff. It was barely noon. The sun hung heavy behind the hospital's smudged windows, but inside, the light felt no warmer than it did at 2 a.m. Aiden was back. He hadn't gone home. Just changed into a fresh uniform, creased and faded from too many washes. His body moved slower now. The blood loss left a dull throb in his arms and a cold ache in his bones. But no one asked. The same halls buzzed. Same stretch of tile. Same coffee dripping behind the nurse station. He gripped the mop handle again, the rubber glove sticking slightly to his palm. Each step echoed in quiet dignity. There was no applause, no acknowledgement. The man who'd saved a billionaire's son was now wiping muddy shoe prints off the ER floor. Near the ICU, a doctor nodded vaguely in his direction. Not in gratitude, just recognition of background noise returning to place. Aiden didn't mind. He wasn't here for thanks. He paused by the janitor's locker room, sat down slowly, letting his knees rest. The bench creaked. The silence crept back in. He opened his locker. Tucked between a lunchbox and cleaning rags was a folded envelope. He picked it up, his name scrawled on the front in crayon. Inside, a drawing. A stick figure in a tutu, holding hands with another figure wearing a blue hat. Me plus Daddy. He smiled faintly. The smile of a man who had one reason to keep standing. Then, Russell. A photo slipped out from the back of the locker. It landed face down. Aiden picked it up, A little girl, hair tied in a messy bun, arms outstretched mid-dance, ballet shoes too big for her tiny feet. "Lily!" He ran a finger over her image. "I'm almost there," he whispered. A photo falls from his locker. A girl in a ballet costume. The photo trembled slightly in Aiden's hands, not from cold, just memory. He leaned back against the locker, letting his eyes close. The smell of chalk, the echo of tiny feet tapping across wooden floors, the sound of music. Soft piano, clumsy at first, then graceful. "Daddy, watch this!" Her voice rang like sunlight through glass. Little Lily stood in the center of the living room, arms flailing, trying to mimic what she'd seen at her school recital. Aiden sat cross-legged on the floor, cheering like she was performing at Lincoln Center. "You spin like a real ballerina," he said, laughing. She beamed. "I want to be one. For real." "Then we'll make it happen," he said, pulling her into his lap. "I'll build the whole stage in the backyard if I have to." She giggled, grabbing his face in her tiny hands. "Promise?" "I swear on my favorite shoes." Her nose scrunched. "The ones with the holes? Especially those." But the laughter faded. The memory bent. The living room blurred into a courtroom. Her mother's voice was cold. Her lawyer's colder. Aiden had nothing. No home, no stable job. Just late hours and broken promises. "Lily needs structure," the judge said. "She needs love," Aiden whispered. He lost. He always did. But he never stopped trying. Present day. Aiden pulled out a crumpled prepaid phone from his locker, thumb hovering over the single saved contact. He took a breath, hit call. It rang twice. Then her mother's clipped voice answered. "What?" Aiden softened. Can I just say hi to her?" A pause. Muffled sounds. Then, "Hi, Daddy." He closed his eyes. "I'm saving every dollar," he whispered. "I'll get you back," Aiden whispers into the phone. "I'm saving every dollar. I'll get you back." Victor Atwell paced the VIP suite like a lion in a glass cage. Outside the window, helicopters churned above the skyline. Inside, monitors beeped beside. Lucas's hospital bed, each sound a reminder that control was slipping. Lucas was stable now, breathing, sleeping. But Victor's storm hadn't passed. He turned sharply toward the hospital director, a nervous man in a pinstripe suit 2 sizes too large. "Someone saved my son's life," Victor said, voice low but sharp. "Who was it?" The director hesitated. "Well, technically it was a blood donor, hospital employee. Right place, right time." Victor narrowed his eyes. "Name?" "That's the thing." The director adjusted his tie. "He didn't leave a full name, just—" "Aiden. Works in janitorial." Silence. Victor blinked. "A janitor?" "Yes, sir." Victor stared at him, confused. "You're telling me a man mopping floors is the reason my son's alive?" He volunteered without hesitation. "We almost lost Lucas." Victor turned to the glass. He saw his son lying still, IVs in both arms, breathing steady. He imagined the chaos, the blood, the seconds slipping away, and then some nameless man offering his veins. No press, no reward. Victor's jaw clenched. "Why didn't anyone tell me this yesterday?" "We didn't think you'd care," the director said too honestly. Victor exhaled. Long. Heavy. "Where is he now?" "I'm not sure. Probably back on shift." Victor didn't answer. He simply turned and walked out. No jacket, no phone. Down the hallway. Past the suits. Past the private suite. His son had been saved by a ghost in navy blue. And Victor Atwell had just realized he didn't even know what gratitude looked like anymore. "Find him. I want to meet him." The vending machine buzzed softly, spitting out a lukewarm paper cup. Aiden didn't flinch. He stood beside the flickering light, staring down at the swirling dark coffee, both hands wrapped around the cup like it held warmth his body had long forgotten. Footsteps echoed behind him. Sharp, confident, impatient. Victor Atwell. He stopped just short of Aiden, took in the man's hunched posture, worn-out shoes, and janitor badge hanging crookedly from his collar. "You're the one," Victor said. Aiden didn't turn. Depends on what you're looking for, my son. He wouldn't be alive without you. Aiden sipped the bitter coffee. Glad he made it. Victor waited for some form of awe, deference, gratitude. But Aiden only leaned against the vending machine like he hadn't saved the heir to a billion-dollar empire. You didn't ask for anything, Victor muttered. No, not even his name. Aiden finally looked at him. Calm, measured. Didn't matter. He was just a boy, bleeding. Victor's throat tightened. He'd flown in specialists, bought out entire hospital wings, and this man had offered the one thing money couldn't buy. Without hesitation. Why? Victor asked, quieter now. Aiden turned his eyes to the ICU hallway, the place where Lucas still lay sleeping. I've got a daughter, he said. If she were on that table, I'd want someone to step up. No cameras, no contracts, just heart. Victor followed his gaze but couldn't speak. For once, words escaped him. Aiden tossed his empty cup in the trash. You don't owe me anything. But as he walked away, Victor stood frozen. Because maybe he did. Maybe he owed the man more than money could measure. Why did you do it? Victor asks. Aiden just sips his coffee and nods toward the ICU. Rain tapped softly against the windshield as Victor sat in the back of his SUV, watching. Across the street stood a crumbling diner, paint peeling, neon sign flickering like it had lost the will to shine. It was nearly 10 p.m. Most men in uniforms were home by now, but not Aiden. Victor watched him slip through the diner's back entrance, his janitor badge tucked away, replaced by a cheap white apron. Inside, Aiden wiped down greasy counters, delivered lukewarm soup to truckers, and bussed tables with quiet grace. His limp was more visible now. The blood donation had drained him, but still he moved, table to table, smile to smile. No one knew he'd saved a life last night. No one cared. Victor sat back, stunned. A janitor by day, a diner server by night, all while raising a child alone. Through the steamed-up glass, Victor saw Aiden slip into the kitchen, glancing left and right. From a small fridge, he pulled out a foil-wrapped meal, placed it into a paper bag, and wrote something across it with a blue marker. Victor leaned forward. As Aiden walked outside to toss the trash, he tucked the bag gently into his messenger. On the side of the bag, in blocky handwriting, Lily, chicken soup, roll, extra cookie. Victor's chest tightened. This wasn't a man chasing charity. This was a father fighting to stay present, one shift at a time. Aiden disappeared down the alley, rain soaking through his thin jacket. No umbrella, no car, just the weight of 2 jobs and one reason to keep going. Victor didn't call out, didn't stop him. But in that moment his perception cracked. He had built empires, and never known this kind of strength. Victor watches him sneak leftover food into a bag, labeled Lily. The fluorescent lights in the janitor's supply closet flickered like tired eyes. Aiden sat on an overturned bucket, shoulders slumped, a brown envelope trembling in his calloused hands. He had found it in his locker that morning. No return address, just the word urgent. He tore it open slowly, already sensing what it might say. Family Court of Oak Ridge County. His vision blurred halfway through the first paragraph. Petitioner seeks permission to relocate the child, Lily Grace Walker, to another state for purposes of remarriage and stable residence. Aiden's breath caught. He skimmed the rest. Dates, signatures, and a sentence that hollowed him out. Father is deemed unfit for joint custody due to insufficient income and housing instability. He pressed the letter against his forehead, fighting the burn in his chest. The mop handle clattered to the floor. His palms covered his eyes, but the tears broke through anyway. Quiet, raw, unwanted. In his mind, he heard Lily's laughter, the soft shuffle of her ballet shoes against the kitchen floor, her voice echoing, "Promise you'll come see me dance, Daddy." His whisper cracked. "I promised." He leaned against the wall, the hum of the ventilation filling the silence. Outside, the world went on. Nurses laughing, elevators dinging, life moving forward. Inside that tiny closet, time stood still. Aiden folded the letter neatly, smoothing out the creases as if that would make the words kinder. He tucked it into his pocket, then forced himself to stand. There was no luxury in breaking. He had another shift to finish, but as he picked up the mop again, one tear slid down and disappeared into the water. No one saw him cry. Aiden cries in the supply closet, clutching the letter. The old community theater shimmered with soft gold light that night. Parents in warm coats filled the rows, clutching programs and phones ready to record their little stars. Backstage, laughter and perfume danced through the air. Aiden stood outside. He wasn't on the list. He didn't need to be. He knew this night by heart, the one where Lily would finally perform in front of an audience. From the cracked side door, he could see her. White tutu, hair in a tight bun, little trembling hands holding her partners as they waited for the cue. He smiled through the glass, pride swelled and ached all at once. The music started. Tchaikovsky, faint but bright. Lily stepped onto the stage like a light itself had taken form. Her first spin was clumsy, her landing soft, but to Aiden she looked perfect. He whispered to himself, "That's my girl." A group of parents nearby whispered and laughed, unaware of him standing in the cold. He didn't mind. He clutched a small bouquet of lilies, cheap ones he'd picked from a roadside vendor on his way here. His hands trembled, not from nerves but from hope. He'd leave them for her like he always did. The applause erupted. Tiny dancers bowed. Lily searched the crowd, scanning faces. For a moment, just a heartbeat, her eyes landed on him through the glass. Her lips parted, a soft, almost disbelieving smile. Then her mother turned, placing a hand on Lily's shoulder, guiding her back toward the curtain. The door shut. The music ended. Rain began to fall, steady and cold. Across the street, a black car stopped. From inside, Victor Atwell watched the man standing in the rain, bouquet wilting in his hands. Victor sees Aiden outside the auditorium, alone in the rain. Rain hammered the pavement, pooling around Aiden's boots as he stood frozen outside the theater doors. The applause inside had faded, replaced by chatter and laughter, the kind of warmth he was never invited into. A black car door slammed behind him. Victor Atwell stepped out, umbrella in hand, his tailored coat still immaculate despite the weather. He approached Aiden like a man walking into a mirror he didn't want to face. "You shouldn't be standing out here," Victor said. "You'll get sick." Aiden gave a faint smile. "I've had worse." Victor's voice hardened. "You saved my son's life, but you're wasting your own." Aiden's brow furrowed. "What's that supposed to mean? You work 2 jobs, sleep in a closet, live on scraps, and for what? To watch from a window? To suffer quietly like it makes you noble?" Aiden's gaze stayed calm, though his hands curled. "You think this is about pride? It's about choices," Victor shot back. "Men like you." "Men like me?" Aiden cut in, voice rising now, breaking through the rain. "I gave blood until I almost passed out. I clean your halls, your floors. I feed strangers before I feed myself. Don't tell me about choices." Victor froze. Aiden took a step closer, soaked, trembling but unbroken. "You talk about saving lives, Mr. Atwell. I've been trying to save mine piece by piece." He looked toward the theater windows, where Lily's silhouette moved behind the curtain. "You've got your boy." "You'd tear the world apart for him. I'd do the same for mine." For once, Victor had no words. Aiden turned away, rain blurring his features. "You saved my son, but you're losing yours," he said quietly, and walked off into the storm. "You saved my son, but you're losing yours," Aiden says, walking away. Morning sunlight crept through the hospital blinds, landing softly across Lucas's face. His fingers twitched first, then his eyelids fluttered open. The sterile hum of machines greeted him like distant memories. "Lucas?" a nurse whispered, leaning over. "Hey, welcome back." His voice was dry, cracked. "Where's my dad?" "Outside," she smiled gently. "He hasn't left since the night you came in." Lucas's mind flickered. Flashes of headlights, screeching tires, broken glass. Then darkness. The nurse adjusted his IV and added softly, "You're very lucky. Someone donated blood right in time." Lucas frowned. "Who?" She hesitated. "A hospital employee." Lucas blinked, confused. "You mean a doctor?" She smiled faintly. "No, a janitor." Silence. Lucas turned his head toward the glass door. Through it, he saw Victor pacing with his phone in hand. Voice low, worried. Lucas's heart sank. "He doesn't even know, does he?" "No," the nurse said quietly. "But he's alive because that man didn't think twice." Lucas stared at his own arm, the IV taped to it, the slow rhythm of life returning. "Can I meet him?" he asked. "I'll see what I can do." Victor entered moments later, eyes softening instantly when he saw his son awake. "Hey, kiddo," he said, voice cracking. "You scared the life out of me." Lucas tried to smile. "Guess I had help." Victor frowned. "What do you mean?" "Tell him," Lucas whispered weakly to the nurse. "Tell him I want to meet the man who gave me my second chance." Victor froze. The words sank deep. "Tell him," Lucas continued, his voice fading. "I want to learn from him." The heart monitor beeped steady, calm, rhythmic, life, quietly continuing. "Tell him, I want to learn from him," Lucas whispers. The courtroom smelled faintly of paper, rain, and old furniture polish. Aiden sat alone at the defendant's table, a worn folder in front of him, hands clasped tightly to stop their shaking. His uniform was pressed as best he could manage. His shoes were scuffed but clean. Across the aisle, Lily's mother whispered to her attorney, confident, composed. Her gold bracelet clinked softly, a sound Aiden had learned to hate. The judge entered. Everyone stood. "Mr. Walker," the judge began, adjusting his glasses, "you are representing yourself?" "Yes, sir," Aiden replied, voice barely above a whisper. "Can't afford otherwise." The lawyer on the opposite side stood tall. "Your Honor, my client seeks permission to relocate with the child to another state. The father's income and housing remain unstable. He cannot provide an adequate environment for Lily Walker." Aiden swallowed hard. "Your Honor, I work 2 jobs. I send every extra dollar for her classes, her clothes, her food. I'm not rich, but I'm present. I don't miss a birthday. I don't miss a dance." The lawyer scoffed. "He missed tonight's recital." Aiden's eyes flickered. "I was there. She just couldn't see me." The room went quiet. Then, from the back, the heavy door creaked open. Every head turned. Victor Atwell stepped inside, removing his hat, rainwater dripping from his coat. The judge blinked. "Sir, this is a closed hearing." "I'm aware," Victor said calmly, his voice carrying weight. "But I'm here as a witness, and as a father." Lily's mother frowned, confused. Aiden froze, unsure if this was real or another cruel twist of fate. Victor met his eyes. "The world needs more fathers like him," he said softly. "Not fewer." The courtroom fell utterly silent. "I'm here as a witness," Victor says, "and a father." The faint echo of piano keys filled the old dance studio, soft, hesitant, like the room itself was remembering music after years of silence. Aiden stood near the wall, still in his janitor's uniform, watching Lily in her ballet shoes. Her movements were uncertain at first, arms stiff, balance shaky, but she laughed unbothered. He smiled. "Slow down, sweetheart. The floor's still wet," she giggled, spinning anyway. "You always say that." It was Saturday morning, sunlight streaming through dusty windows, glinting off the cracked mirrors. There was no audience here, no judge, no lawyer. Just a father and daughter reclaiming time that had been stolen from them. Aiden sat down on the bench near the corner, pulling out an old cassette player. He pressed play, and a familiar melody filled the room. Tchaikovsky again, just like the recital. Lily turned toward him. "You remembered." "Never forgot," he said. She danced again, lighter now, her steps following the music like she was telling the world she'd forgiven it. Victor watched quietly from the doorway, unseen, hands in his pockets. He'd helped where he could, hired a lawyer, pulled a few strings, but he knew what truly healed this family wasn't his power. It was Aiden's presence, his persistence, his love that didn't bend, even under the weight of poverty. The song ended. Lily ran to her father, breathless, cheeks flushed pink. Was I good? Aiden crouched down, eyes soft with pride. You were perfect. She hugged him tight, whispering against his shoulder. Daddy, you're my hero. Aiden's throat tightened. He held her like he was anchoring himself to life again. The piano kept playing in the background, as if the world was finally keeping rhythm with his heart. Lily runs and hugs him. Daddy, you're my hero. 2 months later, the ballroom of St. Mercy Hospital shimmered under chandeliers, crystal light spilling across tables draped in ivory and gold. Laughter echoed between walls that had seen too many tears. Tonight was different. Tonight was celebration. Victor Atwell stood on stage, looking less like a CEO and more like a man finally grounded. Cameras flashed, the crowd murmured. Behind him, a banner read, Honoring the Unsung Heroes of Mercy. Aiden hesitated at the entrance, his hand clutching a small envelope marked, Invitation, Guest of Honor. His suit didn't quite fit. The sleeves were too short, the collar too tight. But Lily, standing beside him in a soft blue dress, squeezed his hand. Come on, Daddy, she whispered. They're waiting for you. He smiled nervously. They don't even know who I am, she grinned. They will. As they stepped inside, conversations quieted. Heads turned. The janitor everyone passed without noticing was now the center of the room. Victor saw him and nodded to the announcer. Tonight, the voice said through the mic, we honor an employee who reminded us that greatness doesn't wear titles. It simply shows up when the world needs it most. Applause filled the hall. Lily beamed. Aiden walked toward the stage, each step echoing louder than any speech. Victor extended his hand, not as a man of wealth, but as a father to another. Thank you, he said quietly, voice trembling. Aiden shook his hand. You already did. You went home. The audience rose to their feet. Cameras flashed, applause thundered, but Aiden's eyes found only one face. Lily's. She mouthed, You did it. He smiled. And for the first time in years, the janitor wasn't invisible. Aiden enters in a clean suit. People clap. The janitor is no longer invisible.